All right, let's dive into a story that is, well, literally etched in stone. It's a tale where faith and power and the very ground beneath our feet all collide. This is the incredible story of the miracle of Mokattam Mountain.
Well, let's start with a question for you, kind of like a riddle. How do you hide a cathedral? One of the most magnificent, enormous structures humans can possibly build.
Well, the answer is as breathtaking as it is simple. You don't build it at all. You carve it directly out of the living rock of a mountain.
And no, this isn't from some fantasy novel. This is real. It's the St. Simon Monastery in Cairo, Egypt. We are talking about a massive complex with a cathedral that seats over 20,000 people, all of it just carved out of the cliffs of Mokattam Mountain. It's truly one of the most incredible places of worship on Earth.
But the most incredible part isn't the engineering you see today. It's the ancient story behind it all. I mean, why would you carve a church into a mountain? And why is that mountain called Mokattam, which literally means the cutoff? To find out, we have to go back, way back, more than 1,000 years.
So, our story begins in 10th century Cairo, and let's just say it was a time of immense power and a whole lot of religious tension. Picture this. It's November, the year 979. Cairo is the heart of the powerful Fatimid Caliphate, and it's ruled by a man named Caliph al-Aziz Billah. At the same time, the leader of the Coptic Christian community is the 62nd Pope, Abram ibn Zuriah. Now, the dynamic between these three figures is absolutely crucial to the story. You've got the Caliph, who apparently really enjoyed a good scholarly debate. You've got the Coptic Pope, Abram. But the real catalyst, the real troublemaker, was the Caliph's vizier, a man named Jacob ibn Achilles. And this guy, he was openly hostile of the Christian community and was always looking for a way to discredit them.
So, in one of the caliph's councils, the vizier sees his chance. He points to this specific verse from the Gospel of Matthew and basically challenges the Pope. He suggests to the caliph, hey, why don't you demand that the patriarch prove his faith is real using these very words?
And the caliph agreed. He turned to Pope Abram and laid down this impossible ultimatum. Prove that your scripture is true. Move the Mokattam mountain, the one looming right over the city. If you succeed, your faith is true. If you fail, it's void, and the consequences for your people will be absolutely dire.
And the deadline he gave them? Just 3 days. 3 days to achieve the impossible.
So, as you can imagine, the community was facing an existential threat. It was a time of pure prayer and panic. They needed a hero, and they needed a miracle, fast.
So Pope Abram gets everyone together, all his bishops, priests, and the people, in the famous hanging church of Old Cairo. For 3 solid days and nights, they fasted completely. We're talking no food, no water, just constant prayer for deliverance from this impossible test.
Then, on the dawn of that final day, an exhausted Pope Abram has a vision. The Virgin Mary appears to him, and she gives him a very specific instruction. Go to the market, and there you will find a one-eyed man carrying a jar of water. She told him, he is the one. God will perform the miracle through him.
The Pope did exactly as he was told, and sure enough, found the man exactly as described. His name was Simon. He was a tanner, a humble craftsman who worked with leather and fixed shoes. He was known for being incredibly pious, but to the wider world, he was a nobody. He was just about the most unlikely hero you could possibly imagine. And so, the stage was set. You had the Caliph and his armies, the Pope and his people, and this humble tanner all gathered at the foot of the Mokattam mountain for the ultimate test of faith.
Now, wanting no attention for himself, Simon the tanner stayed behind the Pope and just gave him instructions. First, lead the people in crying out Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, 400 times. Then, they were all to prostrate themselves in prayer. And finally, the Pope was to stand up and make the sign of the cross right towards the mountain.
So, as the Pope made the sign of the cross, the historical accounts say a terrifying earthquake just violently shook the ground.
And then, the impossible happened. The entire Mokattam mountain violently lifted straight up off the ground, rising so high that the sun actually became visible right underneath its base.
And it wasn't just once. With each prayer, the mountain lifted again. 3 times, this colossal mass of rock rose up and crashed back down, absolutely terrifying the caliph and all of his soldiers.
The caliph was completely overcome with fear. He reportedly screamed out, "Enough! I believe! Stop the mountain before the whole city is overturned!" The test was over. The miracle had been witnessed.
So, what happens after a mountain moves? Well, the consequences of that day were profound, and they've been echoing through history ever since, leaving a legacy in both stone and in faith.
The caliph's policies changed dramatically. The threats were just gone, replaced with favor. Historical records actually show that he forgave taxes and even helped fund the rebuilding of churches. The relationship between the state and the Coptic community improved so much that many historians see it as solid evidence that some kind of momentous event really did happen. And then there's the name of the mountain itself, Al-Mokattam. In Arabic, that root word means cut off or separated. The name itself is like a piece of living evidence. What's even wilder is that geologists have noted that the cliffs appear unnaturally sheer, almost as if they were violently separated from the main plateau, a feature that aligns perfectly with the historical account.
But what about the hero of the story, Simon the Tanner? Well, as soon as the miracle was complete, he just vanished. He deliberately disappeared back into the crowds to escape any fame, honor, or reward from the caliph. He remains this powerful symbol of true humility and faith. And amazingly, his relics were actually rediscovered during a church restoration project back in 1989, nearly 1,000 years after he died.
And this really brings us full circle. Today, that very same mountain is a major religious center, it's a historical monument, a huge tourist attraction, and a real community hub. The story is still alive, right there in the stone.